Showtime. Hi folks, this is Comic Noob here. Excited to talk about the Annihilation Omnibus. So, Annihilation Omnibus. This omnibus was recently reprinted, I think 2 months ago. Decided to pick it up. I've heard a lot of good things about it, and today I finished reading it. I can say it was overall very enjoyable. If you like Marvel cosmic events, if you like Fantastic Four, if you like Silver Surfer, this is for you. I would say it's a medium-sized book. You get a nice image here between Thanos and Drax the Destroyer. One thing you'll notice here is it's rated T+. I don't have my partner with me. I think this is a little bit out of his age range. So I'll just be doing it today by myself. So let's give maybe a very high-level synopsis of this book. So this first intro will be spoiler-free. Won't be telling much about the actual events in the story. And then I'm going to crack the book open and we'll talk about spoilers in a bit. So this is a cosmic epic in which a villain that I wasn't familiar with before this story, called Annihilus, although I think he has come before in the Fantastic Four stories, tries to essentially take over everything with an army of insects and various alliances that he's achieved. And the Annihilation miniseries is only, I believe, 6 issues long. There's also an Annihilation prelude to set everything up. And something that's very nice is you get a mini-series with each of these characters, 4 issues each, to flesh out what they're like, what their motives are, why they're getting wrapped up into this war. And I felt that this was very good world building to establish the story. And maybe I'll get into that more when I open the book and sort of get into some spoilers. But you have characters here that I would say wouldn't necessarily work together, but here they come together for a common good. You have Ronan the Accuser. I know him from Guardians of the Galaxy. He is a much more interesting character here than what I've seen in the MCU movie. You have Super Skrull. So if you don't know him, he's a Fantastic Four villain, and he has the powers of all 4 of the Fantastic Four members. You have Drax the Destroyer, who later becomes one of the Guardians of the Galaxy. You have Nova, and you have Silver Surfer from Fantastic Four fame. Nova, I've known him before. I sort of wrote him off as, let's say, a C-list hero, wasn't too interested. In here, he is an excellent character. I would say he has the best miniseries, and I would even go as far to say that this story is sort of told from his perspective. Okay, at this point, that's it for the overall summary. Let's open the book and get into some spoilers. Let's get this book open. So you'll notice I took the dust jacket off. Generally tend to do that whenever I read my books. And let's go through it here. Annihilation. Really like this art. Here you have the creators and the different stories. Unfortunately, they don't give it by issue in this table of contents. Yeah, I think it's just by story. So you have Drax the Destroyer, 4-issue miniseries, Annihilation Prologue. You have Nova 4 issues miniseries, Silver Surfer, Super Skrull, and Ronan. I really thought the strongest was Nova's, and again, that may be because, at least in my opinion, this story seems to be told from his perspective. You also get the Annihilation event, And then you end it off with Annihilation, Heralds of Galactus, which give you... I would say this is pretty important to read because there are several loose ends that don't really get addressed in the Annihilation event. And this is a pretty good epilogue to close out the story. Although the focus of this, I would say, is more on Silver Surfer and Galactus and his heralds. So we'll get into the story. So the beginning, it's about Drax the Destroyer. So this tells the story of him sort of escaping from prison. There's a big event where the Annihilation Wave sort of disrupts this prison, and they eventually make their way to Earth and meet this girl here named Cammy. She plays a big role in this story. And I believe at the end, Drax sort of gets teleported into space. Here you have the Blood Brothers. I've seen these characters in the comics before. They're interesting characters. Even as far back in the 70s, these guys are introduced. Let's keep flipping through. This gives some good character building with Cammy and Drax. And then I don't think this is Super Skrull. I think this is another Skrull character. Again, the Skrulls are this, let's say, belligerent race of people that can shapeshift. Super Skrull has the powers of Fantastic Four. Here they're causing ruckus. I believe that they're in a town in Alaska. That's where they sort of touch down. And yeah, at the end of this series, they end up in space. So that's the Drax the Destroyer series. And so big spoilers here. So in the Annihilation prologue, the big event that happens is that the Nova Corps is essentially dismantled by the Annihilation Wave. So that's the summary of that. And here you have Thanos. Thanos is a big character here. Yeah, and then here you have Nova Corps setting things up with that. Drax and Cammy coming back. And then here's the Annihilation Wave essentially destroying the Nova Corps. Let's see a little bit later. Yeah, this is a nice one. And then you have Nova coming out from the ashes. You got Ronan the Accuser here also getting involved, Silver Surfer, the major players of this event. And we'll go a little bit further. Oh, here's a nice thing that's worth mentioning. So after some of the issues, you'll get these bios on some of the key characters. So here you have Annihilus and Thanos. These are a really nice addition. You also have in the back pretty comprehensive extras with these bios. I've only read some of them in the back. I've read all of them through the middle of the book. Annihilation Nova Corps files. These are really nice extras. I really like this. But yeah, if you like reading sort of some of the backstory of the characters, this is perfect. Now we get into Annihilation Nova. I think it's in this part of the story. Yes, so yeah. So Nova ends up assimilating the world mind. He becomes a very powerful superhero. So here you have it. Yeah, I think this is where it happens. And this sort of comes into play throughout the book and gives rise to his narration. His narration in many of the issues is, sort of logs from a Nova Corps perspective, running into Drax the Destroyer there. I don't know if I want to say much else. Nova does run into another hero. I wasn't familiar with this hero before, Quasar. If you're fans of Quasar, you might not like something that happens here. So we'll let you to read that on your own to find out. We'll go to the next story. The next one is Silver Surfer. So in this one, you're introduced to Ravenous, who's, I would say, a secondary villain, a pretty big villain in the book. and also several of the Heralds of Galactus aside from Silver Surfer. You get introduced to the Fallen One, for instance. You see his ties to Thanos. We'll go to the next one. Two more Heralds of Galactus. Now we get into Super Skrull. Super Skrull has a very strong story. So there's this running theme where he's seeing the destruction of the Annihilation Wave. He's concerned about the Annihilation Wave reaching his home planet where his son is still living. And he's trying to do everything in his power to stop the Annihilation Wave from reaching his son. So you're going to see his quest to try and accomplish that. Along the way, you're met with this engineering character who helps Super Skrull along. And he is also joined by a few others. This is a nice one. You get an introduction to the Skrull Empire here. So an entire race of people, what they're all about. If you've read Fantastic Four, you probably know this. They're pretty prominent there, but I wasn't too aware, so I really like that one. And they end up visiting a prison planet in the negative zone. So they're going to the negative zone. I believe the Fantastic Four end up helping them get there, or at least Reed Richards. Yeah, and then they ally some of the characters in the negative zone. One important character that they ally with is this character, Praxagora, who is sort of this, how can I say, like almost like AI, artificial machine slash bio life form. So she's an important character from here on out in the story. So, you know, you can read about it there. And I know this is spoilers, but towards the end of the Super Skrull series, there are a few twists that happen in the story. I feel like I am sort of ruining things for you if I give that away, so I'm just going to skip past this. Now we get into Ronan. So with Ronan the Accuser, I really liked his story. I thought his was one of the stronger stories. I think Skrull, Nova, and Ronan are the three that really drew me in for the setup. So you sort of find out about how he's on the run, how the Kree Empire, which is this other opposing faction, was taken over by some new leadership that is pretty controversial. And we'll let you read about Ronan yourself, but there are some very interesting character-defining moments. You also get introduced to Gamora in these pages. So here you have a bio on her. Very different from how she was in Guardians of the Galaxy. And then we get into Annihilation, the event. So running theme in this event is, here's a very nice, I don't know if you want to call that, yeah, it's a cover art on Annihilus. The running theme is that, now you get this very direct narration from Nova, is that, you know, Nova's, you know, fighting against the Annihilation Wave. He's trying to pull allies from wherever he can get them. And he keeps losing ground. So he keeps losing ground, he eventually is able to overcome the Annihilation Wave. And the way that happens, I don't want to ruin it. It does involve Thanos. I can say that. It involves Galactus. And I feel like I've given, even though this is sort of the spoiler part, enough of this event to, you know, to give you enough to know whether you're going to like it or not. Now, at the very end, we have this, we'll call it an epilogue called Heralds of Galactus. And this gives you 4 stories, one for each herald, that sort of tell you what happened after the Annihilation War finished. There's something that very unsavory that happens with that villain that we mentioned before, Ravenous. He ends up negotiating some treaties, you know, even though he sort of lost the war. So that doesn't really sit well with a lot of the heralds. So we'll let you read that. There's also some loose ends tied up with 2 cosmic villains that appear earlier in the book. These 2. I don't know if I'm pronouncing these right, but Aegis, that sounds right, and Tenebros of the Darkness. So you can find out what happens there, and Silver Surfer gets involved, and then like I mentioned before, you get this very nice collection at the end of all the different characters, some of the races in this story. The extras in here are really nice. You have some artists depictions of the different characters as they're evolving, the look of each of these characters. Here you have each of the main characters, Nova, Super Skrull, so forth. Some early renditions. And that we have the back here with Thanos. So that's the Annihilation Omnibus. I really liked it. Hopefully you got enough from this intro to not be too spoiled, but spur on your interest to read this. I've heard rumors that Marvel may end up making a movie about this, which I don't know how they're going to do because Drax the Destroyer. This happens solidly before Guardians of the Galaxy, and that sort of already happened in their world, and also Thanos is there, so we'll see how they clean up that mess. But solid book. Some of the setup might be a little slow, especially in the very beginning with Drax. While I thought his story was overall good, it was a little slow, but it really gets going in the middle with Nova. You get some great character defining moments with Ronan and Super Skrull. Ronan I really liked. I thought he was portrayed here very well. I didn't really like him too much from the movies. So excellent book. Hope this helps you understand better what the book is about and to get a different opinion. All right, we'll catch you later. Take care.